Claire had been married to Marcus for 11 years. Not the kind of marriage you see in movies. Not the kind people write songs about. The kind where you wake up one day and realize you've disappeared. Marcus was a successful corporate lawyer. Sharp. Ambitious. Always moving toward the next case, the next promotion, the next version of himself that didn't include her. Claire? She was a high school art teacher. Quiet. Patient. The kind of woman who could sit in a room full of people and still feel like she wasn't really there. Before we continue, if this is your first time watching one of our videos, we'd love for you to hit that subscribe button and comment where you are watching from. Your support means the world to us, and it helps us bring you even more powerful stories. Their house was beautiful. Marble countertops, floor-to-ceiling windows, a backyard with a pool they never used. But it felt empty. Not because it lacked furniture, because it lacked attention. Marcus came home late most nights. He'd loosen his tie, pour himself a drink, scroll through his phone, and say maybe 10 words before heading upstairs. Claire would ask him about his day. He'd answer without looking up. She'd tell him about hers. He'd nod like he heard her. But he didn't. And after a while she stopped trying. She stopped asking. She stopped talking. She just existed. And Marcus didn't notice. One Friday night, Marcus told her they were hosting a dinner party. Not asked her. Told her. Some partners from the firm. Important people. I need you to make a good impression. Claire nodded. She spent the entire day preparing. Roasted chicken. Garlic mashed potatoes. A salad with candied walnuts. A chocolate tart she'd seen in a cookbook. She set the table with their good dishes. Lit candles. Even wore a dress she hadn't touched in 2 years. The guests arrived at 7. Marcus introduced her once. This is my wife, Claire. And that was it. For the next 3 hours, she sat at the end of the table, refilling wine glasses, clearing plates, smiling politely while the men talked about mergers and acquisitions and golf. Not one of them asked her a single question. Not one. At one point, Marcus laughed at something his boss said, and Claire realized she hadn't heard him laugh in months. Not with her anyway. When the guests left, Marcus poured himself another drink and said, "That went well." Claire stood in the kitchen, staring at the stack of dirty dishes. "Did I do okay?" she asked quietly. Marcus glanced at her like she'd asked a strange question. "You were fine. Fine. Not great. Not wonderful. Not thank you for spending your whole day making this happen. Fine." Claire turned back to the sink, and something inside her cracked. Not loudly, just quietly, like ice breaking under weight no one else could see. 2 weeks later, Claire's phone rang. It was her younger brother, Daniel. She hadn't spoken to him in almost a year. Not because they fought, just because life got busy. He traveled constantly for work. She didn't want to bother him. "Claire," his voice was warm, familiar. "I'm in town for a few days. Dinner." She hesitated. Marcus wouldn't care. He probably wouldn't even notice she was gone. "Sure," she said. "I'd like that." They met at a small Italian place downtown. Nothing fancy. Red checkered tablecloths. Candles and wine bottles. Daniel hugged her when she arrived, and she realized it had been months since anyone hugged her. They ordered pasta. Talked about nothing important at first. Old memories. Childhood jokes. Their parents who had passed years ago. Then Daniel paused. "You okay?" Claire looked up. "What do you mean? You seem quiet." She forced a smile. "I'm always quiet. Not like this." There was something in his eyes. Concern. Real concern. Claire's throat tightened. "I'm fine," she said. But her voice cracked on the word. Daniel didn't push. He just nodded. Changed the subject. But as they left the restaurant, he hugged her again. And this time, she held on a little longer. Their 12th wedding anniversary was on a Tuesday. Claire woke up that morning wondering if Marcus would remember. He didn't. He left for work before she got out of bed. No note. No text. Nothing. She sat at the kitchen table with her coffee, staring at the calendar on the wall. 12 years. She'd spent 12 years trying to be enough. Trying to be noticed. Trying to matter. And she still didn't. That night, Marcus came home at 9:30. Claire was sitting on the couch, a small gift box on the coffee table in front of her. She'd bought him a watch. Nothing extravagant, just something thoughtful. Marcus walked past her, heading straight for the kitchen. "Long day," he muttered. Claire watched him. "Marcus." He stopped. Turned. "Do you know what today is?" He blinked. Looked at his phone. Then back at her. "Tuesday." Claire's chest tightened. She stood slowly, picked up the gift box, and walked upstairs. Marcus didn't follow. She sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the box in her hands. And for the first time in years, she let herself cry. Not because he forgot, but because she realized it didn't even surprise her anymore. A month later, Claire found the receipt. She wasn't snooping. She was doing laundry. Marcus's jacket pocket. A crumpled piece of paper. Dinner for two. A restaurant downtown. Expensive. The date was last Thursday. Marcus had told her he was working late. Claire sat on the bedroom floor, holding the receipt. Her hands didn't shake. She didn't cry. She just stared at it. Because deep down she already knew. She didn't confront him. Not yet. She folded the receipt and put it in her nightstand drawer. And she waited. 2 weeks later, Marcus's phone buzzed on the kitchen counter. He was upstairs in the shower. Claire glanced at the screen. A text. From someone named Jenna. "Can't wait to see you tonight. Wear the blue tie." Claire's stomach dropped. She picked up the phone. Scrolled through the messages. Weeks of them. Months, maybe. Flirty. Familiar. Intimate. Claire set the phone down exactly where it had been. And she walked outside. She stood in the backyard, staring at the pool they never used, the garden she'd planted alone, the life she'd built by herself while married to a man who was never really there. And she made a decision. Not a loud one. Not dramatic. Just quiet. She was done disappearing. Claire called Daniel the next morning. "Can we meet?" He heard it in her voice. "I'll be there in an hour." They met at the same Italian place. This time Claire didn't smile. Daniel sat across from her waiting, and she told him everything. The loneliness, the silence, the anniversary, the receipt, the texts. She didn't cry. She just spoke. Calmly, quietly, like she was telling him about the weather. When she finished, Daniel leaned back in his chair. His jaw was tight. "What do you want to do?" he asked. "I want to leave," Claire said. "But I need to do it right. I need to be smart." Daniel nodded slowly. "Then we'll be smart." Claire looked at him. Really looked at him. She hadn't asked Daniel what he did for a living in years. He traveled. He worked in finance. That's all she knew. "Daniel," she said quietly, "what exactly do you do?" He smiled. Not a happy smile. A knowing one. "I'll tell you over coffee," he said. "But first we're getting you a lawyer." Claire moved carefully. She didn't yell. Didn't accuse. Didn't confront. She documented everything. Screenshots of the texts. Copies of credit card statements. Dates. Times. Locations. She opened her own bank account. Started transferring small amounts. Nothing Marcus would notice. She found an apartment. A small one. Across town. Month-to-month lease. And she kept teaching. Kept smiling. Kept pretending. Because the best way to catch someone off guard? Let them think they've already won. Marcus had no idea. He came home late. Barely looked at her. Barely spoke. And Claire let him. Because every day he ignored her was another day she got stronger. Daniel introduced her to a woman named Monica. Mid-50s. Sharp suit. Sharper eyes. She sat across from Claire in a glass office overlooking the city. "Tell me everything," Monica said. Claire did. Monica listened. Took notes. Didn't interrupt. When Claire finished, Monica leaned back. "This is going to be clean," she said. "You won't see it coming." "I don't want revenge," Claire said quietly. "I just want out." Monica smiled. Sometimes, Claire, the best revenge is just telling the truth. One night, over takeout in her new apartment, Claire finally asked, "Daniel, what do you really do?" He set down his fork. "I run a private equity firm," he said. "We acquire companies. Restructure them. Sometimes we save them. Sometimes we shut them down." Claire stared at him. You're rich? Daniel smiled. I do okay. Why didn't you ever tell me? You never asked, he said gently. And I didn't want you to feel like you had to ask me for help. Claire's throat tightened. I should have called you sooner. You called when you were ready, Daniel said. That's what matters. He paused. Claire, Marcus works at Castellano and Partners, right? She nodded. Daniel's expression shifted. We just bought a controlling stake in their parent company. Claire blinked. What does that mean? Daniel looked at her. It means I'm about to have a very close look at everyone who works there. Claire filed for divorce on a Wednesday morning. Marcus was served at his office. In front of his colleagues. In front of Jenna. She didn't do it to humiliate him. She did it because it was the fastest way. That night, Marcus came home. He slammed the door. What the hell is this? He shouted, waving the papers. Claire stood in the kitchen calm. It's a divorce, Marcus. You can't just. I can, she said quietly. And I did. This is insane. We can work this out. No, Claire said. We can't. Marcus stared at her like he'd never seen her before. And maybe he hadn't. You're really doing this, he said. I already did. He stood there, speechless. And for the first time in years, Claire felt like she could breathe. 2 weeks later, Marcus's firm was audited. Not randomly. Very specifically. Expense reports. Client billing. Travel records. Things that had been overlooked for years suddenly weren't. And Marcus's name kept appearing. Dinners charged to the firm. Hotel rooms. Trips that didn't match client meetings. Someone had flagged it. Someone with access to the parent company's financial systems. Someone who knew exactly what to look for. Marcus was called into a meeting. 3 senior partners. HR legal. They asked him to explain. He couldn't. The firm didn't fire him immediately. They suspended him. Pending investigation. But word spread fast. Colleagues whispered. Clients pulled back. Jenna stopped answering his calls. Marcus sat alone in his big, empty house. The same house where Claire had disappeared a little more every day. And now he was the one disappearing. He tried calling her. She didn't answer. He showed up at the school where she taught. She walked past him without a word. He sent her emails. Texts. Apologies. None of it mattered. Because Claire had already moved on. The divorce was finalized 3 months later. Claire didn't ask for much. Half the house. Half the savings. Her car. She could have asked for more. Monica told her she could. But Claire didn't want his money. She wanted her life back. And she got it. Marcus signed the papers without a fight. He had nothing left to fight with. Claire moved into a small apartment near the coast. Big windows. Hardwood floors. A balcony overlooking the water. It wasn't fancy. But it was hers. She started painting again. Something she hadn't done in years. Watercolors. Landscapes. Abstract pieces that didn't need to make sense. She hung them on her walls. She invited friends over. Colleagues from school. People she'd lost touch with. She laughed. Really laughed. For the first time in years. 6 months later, Claire was having coffee at a cafe downtown. Reading. Alone. Content. The door opened. She glanced up. Marcus. He looked thinner. Tired. Older. He saw her. Froze. For a moment, neither of them moved. Then Marcus walked over. Claire. She looked up at him. Calm. Marcus. Can I sit? She hesitated. Then nodded. He sat across from her, hands folded on the table. I'm sorry, he said quietly. For everything. Claire looked at him. Really looked at him. And she realized she didn't feel anything. Not anger. Not sadness. Not even pity. Just nothing. I know, she said. Marcus waited, like he expected more. But Claire didn't give it to him. She picked up her book. Take care of yourself, Marcus. And she went back to reading. Marcus sat there for a moment longer. Then he stood. And walked out. Daniel came by that weekend. He brought Thai food and a bottle of wine. They sat on her balcony, watching the sun set over the water. You look happy, he said. Claire smiled. I am. Good. They sat in comfortable silence. Thank you, Claire said quietly. For everything. Daniel shook his head. You did this, Claire. I just reminded you that you could. She looked at him. What happened to Marcus's firm? Daniel took a sip of wine. They restructured. Let go of about 30% of their staff. Marcus wasn't one of them. Claire raised an eyebrow. He wasn't. No, Daniel said. But he's not a partner anymore. He's doing contract work. Hourly. Claire nodded slowly. And Jenna? Daniel smiled. Transferred. Different office. Different state. Claire laughed. Not cruelly. Just lightly. Karma's slow, she said. But it's thorough, Daniel replied. A year later, Claire was offered a position at a private art academy. Better pay. Smaller classes. More freedom to teach the way she wanted. She accepted. On her first day, she stood in front of a room full of students. Young faces. Eager. Nervous. She smiled. Art isn't about being perfect, she said. It's about being honest. One student raised her hand. What if we're not good enough? Claire paused. You're always good enough, she said quietly. You just have to believe it first. The student nodded, and Claire realized she was talking to herself as much as them. 2 years after the divorce, Claire received a letter. No return address. She opened it. Inside was a single handwritten page. Marcus's handwriting. Claire, I don't expect you to forgive me. I don't expect you to respond. I just needed you to know that I see it now. I see what I had, and I see what I lost. You were never invisible. I just refused to look. I hope you're happy. I hope you found what I couldn't give you. I hope you're free. Marcus. Claire read it twice. Then she folded it, put it in a drawer, and never thought about it again. 3 years after leaving Marcus, Claire had her first art show. A small gallery downtown. 20 pieces. All hers. Daniel was there. Friends. Colleagues. Students. People she loved. People who saw her. She stood in the corner, watching people move through the room, studying her work. One painting caught everyone's attention. It was called Invisible. A woman standing in a crowded room. Everyone around her in vivid color. She was painted in white. Transparent. But if you looked closely, you could see her starting to fill in. Starting to come back. A woman walked up to Claire. Mid-40s. Kind eyes. This one, she said, pointing to Invisible. It's powerful. Thank you, Claire said. It feels personal. Claire smiled. It is. The woman looked at her. Did you find your way back? Claire glanced at the painting, then at the people in the room. At Daniel, laughing with one of her students. At her life. Her art. Her freedom. Yeah, Claire said softly. I did. The woman smiled and walked away. Claire stood there a moment longer. Then she took a breath and stepped back into the light. The end.